friends, it's Nick here. Remember this place? Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? In fact, on March 14th, it will be 1 full year since we closed our doors and moved everything in online, doing what we can to keep everybody safe and flatten the curve. And it's been quite the year, hasn't it? Yeah, it's been a really big year. So on March 14th, to honor that, we want to invite you to a special Sunday service. It'll be a time of grieving and lamenting all the hardships and loss that we've experienced, but also naming how we've grown, celebrating the fact that we are still here and looking ahead to what is next for us as a church community. So whether you are brand new or whether you have been here for the entire year, we want to invite you to this very special and important service. Join us for a time lamenting, grieving, celebrating, giving thanks, but also looking and stepping out into what is next. So March 14th, 10 o'clock, find us on YouTube. We'll see you there. It's going to be a great service of being the church together.
Hello, I'm Vi Sharp. I'm the Congregational Care Counselor for this congregation. I would like to share with you what congregational care teams and the hospitality teams have been doing during the pandemic. The hospitality teams have been cooking up a storm. They have been making 3-course meals every month and freezing them. And then we have been delivering them to your homes, door-to-door service, along with packages that include our church magazine and our other items that we will include for your enjoyment. It's our way of sharing with you that we miss you, we love you, and we want to connect with you. So if you would like to receive a care package or some food, please do not hesitate to let us know. And hopefully we'll be able to see each other sooner rather than later.
Have you ever been reading the Bible and end up saying, what the hell do these stories even mean? And you just kind of close the book and put it on a shelf, never to read it again, thinking it's too hard? Yeah, me too. Because the thing is, the Bible is hard to read. It's not an easy thing to process and figure out. That's why we do it in groups. Because we know that by reading it together, we can figure it out. So I want to invite you to our faith and coffee time here at Red Deer Lake United Church. We meet every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. and we talk about the Bible story of the week. And we don't just look to figure out what it said then. More importantly, we ask, what is it saying to us here today? Not just as individuals, but also to us as a church community, to us as privileged people living in Canada, to us as a world. What is God saying to us through it? It is always an amazing time of learning, of growth, challenge, and inspiration and community, and everyone is always welcome. So check out the link below. It'll take you to all the information you need, and we'd love to have you join us at our next Faith and Coffee time. Hey friends, welcome to a Sunday service with Red Deer Lake United Church. My name is Nick, I am the minister here, and we are Red Deer Lake United Church. We are an affirming church that gratefully gathers on Treaty 7 land, and what we are all about is finding in the way of Jesus a new way of being human and alive in this world. A way connected to God, each other, and ourselves. This way of life full of hope, joy, peace, wonder, love, beauty, justice. This way of life that transforms us so we can go out and transform the world, turning it into the one that God always wanted it to be. A world where everyone has enough and everyone has a place. Yeah, that is what we are all about. That is who we are. And we are so glad that you've joined us for a Sunday service. Thank you for being here. Seriously, thank you. It means the world that you are here because we know that it's good to be in community. We know it's good to be in diverse community. And we know it's good to do that one thing that we have to do to be human and alive in this world. And that's connect with God, each other, and ourselves. So that's what we're going to do today. But before we do that, take a moment to say hello. Go into the comment box somewhere on your screen there. It's all backwards. I get this confused. Whatever. Say hi. Say who you are. Say where you are coming from. This is how we can connect. This is how we can be in affirming and loving community. So whether you are brand new or whether you've been here for a while, we invite you to say hello. Check in the comments, and you can use that to chat away as we do our service together. That's one of the cool things about doing this online. We can actually engage as we do the work of worship, as we do the work of becoming more human and connecting with God, that source of life, that ground of our being, that mystery underneath it all. And so as we get started, let's start with this. We're going to start with a prayer. And this is such a beautiful prayer because it's a prayer of gathering. And gathering in love. Because this is a place where we can come as we are. We can come with everything that's going on in us and around us. We don't need to dress up. We don't need to put on our Sunday best. You never did. And we can just come as we are because we are loved and accepted as we are. And this prayer reminds us of that. It's a prayer of courageously and vulnerably showing up as we are, knowing that's what's needed and knowing that's enough. And so as we head into our time this morning, know that you're welcome. Know that this is a good place to be. And as we enter into our service, as always, may the peace of Christ be with you.
In our pain, our blue, our beautiful, our hard, our messy, our ugly, our struggles and our joys, God is with us. God accompanying us, God alongside us, God amid us, God among us, God beside us, God by us, God including us, God near us, God plus us, God upon us, God as companion to us, God side by side us, God in the thick of us, in the thick of our humanity, in the middle of this weary world. God is with us. In the gift and in the muck and mire of real life, we are called to be present, to be in the flesh with one another, accompanying others, alongside others, amid others, beside others, by others, for others, including others, near others, a companion to others, side by side with others, in the thick of others. God with us with others. God with the world in the thick of the beautiful and the messy. In that, a weary world rejoices.
Amen, right? Yeah. Amen. Such a good prayer. Did anyone else need to hear that one? I know I did. Let me know in the comments if you needed to be reminded of that. If you needed to be reminded that God is with us. That in our mess, in the weariness, in the muck, the mire, the chaos of life, the stuff that's in us and around us, that we are not alone but God. The source of life, the ground of being, that mystery underneath it all, that thing that moves everything forward is with us. Yeah. Amen. Yeah, I needed to hear that. So now that we are rooted in that truth, now that that truth goes to work, we're going to head into our service. And we're going to start with a song. It's a song that you would have heard last week. We're going to sing some new verses to it. Antonina and her team have done a great job on it. And it's a song that leads us into Lent. Because that's the season that we're in right now. We're in the season of Lent. That season of transformation, that season where we do the hard but beautiful and essential work of moving towards healing, peace, and wholeness, of becoming more and more the kinds of people that we want to be and the kinds of people that God wants us to be. So as we head into this song, as always, we invite you to do what you got to do. If you need to sing it, sing. If you need to just reflect and look at the words, do that. If you just need to finish praying and kind of letting that truth go to work, do that. It doesn't matter. But what does matter, the work that we each have to do, is just leaning into this a little bit more. Breathing in that spirit of life and letting her go to work, helping us do the work of Lent.
Tree of life and awesome mystery, in your death we are reborn. Though you die in all of history, still you rise with every morn. Still you rise with every morn. Gentle Jesus, mighty Spirit, come inflame our hearts anew. We may all your joy inherit if we bear the cross with you. If we bear the cross with you. In our call to be a blessing, may we be a blessing true. May we live and die confessing Christ as Lord of all we do. Christ as Lord of all we do. Christ you lead and we shall follow, stumbling though our steps may be. One with you in joy and sorrow, we the river, you the sea. We the river, you the sea.
So as we said, we're in Lent, that season of transformation, that season of doing the hard but sacred work of moving towards peace, healing, and wholeness. And while I know some of you have some things that you are working on your own, the plan for Lent for these Sunday services is to do some of that work together. Each week we're going to do a spiritual practice. We're going to introduce you to some practices that we can do that can help us all move towards peace, healing, and wholeness. And we want to do this for two reasons. We want to do this because, well, hard work is made easier when we do it together, right? Yeah, it becomes a little bit easier when we know that we're not alone. When we can know that we've got others cheering us along who are also sweating it out with us. It gets a little bit easier, doesn't it? Yeah, it's good to do these things together. And the other reason is these are things that you can do on your own. Yes, we can do them together here, but if these scratch an itch, if these help you out, if you do this and you're like, oh my God, I needed that. Yeah, remember this one and do it later on your own. It's always good to build up that toolkit of different spiritual practices that you can do throughout your days and your weeks and your years that can help you just get grounded, that can help silence the noise, that can help you do the work that you might need to do. Yeah, that's what we want to do each and every week throughout Lent. And we're going to start with this one. And this is a spiritual practice. It's written by Stephanie Voss. And this is a breathing prayer. So it's a prayer that helps us breathe. And we're going to start with this one. It's a prayer by Stephanie Voss, and it's all about loving our bodies. Yeah, loving our... And we're going to start with this one. It's a spiritual practice written by Stephanie Voss, and it's a prayer to help us love our bodies. Yeah, a prayer to help us love our bodies. So often, way too often, when we think about spirituality, it's something that is here or something that's here. But what spirituality really does is help us, And we're going to start with this one. We're going to start with this one. It's a spiritual practice written by Stephanie Voss. And it's a spiritual practice that's all about loving our bodies. Yeah, our bodies, our hands, our feet, our legs, our torsos, our chest, our butts. All of us. Because that's the thing, right? Sometimes when we think about faith and spirituality, sometimes when we think about this Lenten work we're doing, it's all about stuff in here. Or it's all about stuff in here. But if Lent is all about becoming whole, then that has to be becoming one with our minds, our hearts, our souls, and our bodies. And I don't know about you, but if you're like me, sometimes we can have a pretty awkward relationship with our bodies, right? Anyone with me on that? Yeah, sometimes they don't cooperate. Sometimes they look a little weird. Sometimes we just have this constant battle with them because of all the stuff that we see and hear in the media. Yeah, it can be a hard thing to do, to be one, to be whole in our bodies. In this spiritual practice, this breathing prayer that we're going to do, it's all about loving our bodies, coming to say thank you, coming to say I love you, and be at peace and wholeness with it. And so as we head into this prayer, here's how it's going to work. I'm going to say something, and there's going to be a line for you to repeat. And then we're going to go into a breath. Because breath can be such a powerful way to reconnect with our bodies. And for the next few minutes or so, we're going to enter into this breathing prayer, this spiritual practice of loving our bodies, where we can say some things that can help us be mindful of our bodies. And then with that breath, we're going to enter into our bodies. And the hope is, the prayer is that by the end of this, we can feel a little bit more aligned, a little bit more in love, grateful for our bodies, a little more whole. And so, my friends, as we head into this spiritual practice for the first week of Lent, may grace and peace be with you. To be human means to have a body. With this breath, we reconnect with ours. We remember that to be human means being one with mind, body, and soul. With this breath, we let those things realign, remembering they are all good. When we abandon our bodies, choosing to live in our heads or through our screens, we return with our breath. When our bodies are overwhelmed with fear and anxiety, we love it by taking a deep breath. When our bodies fail and disappoint, we give it grace with a breath. When our bodies cause harm and suffering to others, we come back to our center with a soft breath. When our bodies are harmed and violated, we take refuge in our breath and remember we do not deserve it. For all our bodies, of all their shapes and sizes, and with all their limitations, with this breath we say thank you and I love you. So, reading from Mark. Jesus and his disciples went into the villages near Caesarea Philippi. On the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" They told him, "Oh, some say you're John the Baptist, others Elijah, and still others one of the prophets." He asked them, "And what about you? Who do you say that I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Christ." And Jesus ordered them not to tell anyone about him. But Peter took a hold of Jesus and, scolding him, began to correct him. Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, then sternly corrected Peter. "Get behind me, Satan. You are not thinking God's thoughts, but human thoughts." After calling the crowd together with his disciples, Jesus said to them, "All who want to come after me must say no to themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. But all who want to save their lives will lose them. But all who lose their lives because of me and because of the good news will save them. Why would people gain the whole world but lose their lives? What will people give in exchange for their lives? Whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this unfaithful and sinful generation, the human one will be ashamed of that person when he comes in the Creator's glory with the holy angels." Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
O Spirit God, to you we pray for the healing of the nation. Within this space, extend your grace for the healing of our neighbors. Love, enter our shattered world of tears, soothing the pain of all our loss, breaking the locks on all our fears, forging the truth inside our years, in the shape of a cross. O Spirit God, to you we pray for the healing our neighbors.
Love and our morals we pray. Suddenly saving what was lost, lighting the spark of hope and faith, bringing forgiveness to all day in the shape of a cross.
O Spirit God, to you we pray for the healing of the nations. Within this space, extend your grace for the healing of our neighbors. Love, enter our lives at darkest hour. Be with us as we count the cost, wanting to follow where you lead, painting the pictures of your power in the shape of a cross, in the shape of a cross, in the shape of a cross.
All right, my friends, it is the sermon time. No, it's not. Where are my notes? There they are. All right, now it is the sermon time. But before we get into that, let's take a second and check back in. How are we doing? We still here? We still good? If you have been distracted by something and wandered off, cool, that happens. Take a second to come on back. Choose to be here. Or maybe you are at an earlier part of the service still and you're caught up in some work that has caused. Great, beautiful, that's what it's supposed to do. So take a second, finish that up, and join us here. And I want us to be here for two reasons. One, as we've been talking about, a sermon isn't something that I give to you, but rather is something that we do together. It's that soulful and consequential conversation that we get to have together about what it means to be human and alive in this world, about faith, life, and spirituality. And it only works if we're all leaning in this together. So I want us to be here for that. But also, the second reason, we're going to get real today. We're going to get real by naming one truth at the very heart of not only our faith, but almost more so at the heart of our human experience. And it's a truth that we're not going to want to hear. It's one that nobody wants to hear, but it's one that we have to hear. It's one that we have to learn to trust and embrace. It's one that once we embrace it, once we lean into it, everything begins to change. And we tap into the truthiest truth that we offer, this truth at the very heart of our faith. This truth that we're moving towards and discover at Easter. And so, my friends, let's choose to be here. Let's choose to pursue this truth together. Let's rumble with it together. And let's just jump in, shall we? Let's do this. Are you with me? Yeah, I'm assuming you're all nodding along, cheering in your homes and at the TV screens. So let's do this. And so the truth that we're after today, it rises out of the story that's in the Bible. You just heard it. It is from the Gospel according to Mark, which is one of those books of the New Testament that talks about who Jesus is and what he's all about. And this story that we're talking about today, it revolves around a conversation between Jesus and some of the disciples. So at this point in the whole story, Jesus and his buddies are making their way up to northern Palestine. Jesus has been doing his thing. He's healing, he's renewing, he's restoring. He's introducing people to this whole new way to be human and this whole new world that they can be a part of. He's rearranging the air. He's getting them caught up in wonder and awe. And people, they're experiencing it all and they're going nuts. They're loving it. And of course, as humans do, they start talking. They start wondering, who is this guy? What is he all about? Where did he come from? And so Jesus, knowing this, as they're out for their walk, he turns to the disciples and says, hey, what's the buzz? What's happening? What are people saying? And the disciples, they tell him. But then he turns the question back on them and says, well, what about you guys? You have been with me for a while now. You've seen and heard it all. Who do you say that I am?" And Peter, kind of speaking for the rest of the group, he says, "You are the Christ. You are the Messiah." And this is where the whole thing takes a turn. This is where we have to start paying attention. Because Jesus, he turns to Peter and says, "Don't tell anybody that." And then Jesus proceeds to say how he's going to suffer and die, how he's going to be killed and crucified. But Peter, hearing that, jumps in front of Jesus, grabs him by the shoulders, shakes him, scolds him, saying, "No, that can't happen. I won't let that happen." And hearing that, seeing Peter say that, Jesus turns to him and says, "Get behind me, Satan." Yeah, get behind me, Satan. Talk about a burn. That's harsh, right? Get behind me, Satan? I mean, come on, Jesus, that's heavy. That's a lot. But we need to pull over here because this is where that truth begins to emerge. This is where things begin to happen. And in order for us to get there to that point, we first need to talk a little bit about something that Peter said, and then we have a question to ask. So the thing that Peter said. What did Peter call Jesus? The Messiah. Yeah, and to us, that's a very religious term. We hear that in our music. We hear that in our stories. But back in Peter's day, back in Jesus' day, it wasn't so much a theological term as it was a political term. Messiah is a political term. It was a term for the person who would come from God and overthrow the Roman Empire. This person who would turn the oppressors into the oppressed. This person who would flip the script, turn the tables, who would establish Israel, the Jewish people, as the people in charge, moving them from the least of these to the greatest of these. And that's what Peter is talking about. That's who he thought Jesus was. He saw Jesus as a person who would do that, who came to win, to be in charge, to be the guy at the top, and show the oppressors who's the boss. Yeah, he saw him as Tony Danza, essentially. And now we can understand a bit, if that's what Peter is talking about, why he freaked out and why he did what he did. Because if Jesus is going to suffer and die, well, that means he's not the Messiah. Because if he's going to suffer and die, he can't win. He can't be the guy on top. Jesus can't flip the script and put those oppressors in their place. And so, of course, he freaks out. Of course, he says he won't let that happen. So we can kind of cut the guy some slack. We can understand why he gets so worked up. Which, of course, takes us to the question we have to ask. Why does Jesus react the way he does? Why such a harsh and heavy statement? I mean, he puts Peter in cahoots with Satan. That's not a small rebuke. That's a big punch to the face. That's heavy. That's very un-Jesus-y. And so we have to get curious. We have to ask why. And here's what I think is going on. I wonder if Jesus reacts the way he does. Not just because he disagrees with Peter's understanding of what the Messiah is and what the Messiah will do. That's a topic for a different day. But I wonder if Jesus reacts the way he does because Peter's objection, Peter's refusal to allow him to suffer and die, his pledge to stop what's going to happen, I wonder if Jesus reacts the way he does because all of that pushes back against a core, essential, and foundational truth at the heart of our faith and at the heart of our human experience. And that truth is this: we cannot avoid suffering. Yeah, we cannot avoid suffering. To be human and alive in this world means we will suffer. Nobody gets a free pass. Nobody makes it through unscathed. Suffering is a necessary and mandatory part of being alive. We cannot avoid it. Which is hard to hear, isn't it? Yeah, it's hard to hear. We don't want this to be true. Nobody wants to suffer. We don't want to suffer. We don't want our neighbors to suffer. We don't want our loved ones to suffer. I mean, no wonder Peter did what he did. Suffering hurts. It's painful. It's hard. It sucks. And while we would do anything to avoid it and stop it, what this story begins to point at, what it helps us hear, is this hard but essential truth. You can't avoid it. You can't stop it. But you will experience it. Because we can't avoid it. To suffer is to be human, and to be human is to suffer. It is baked in to the whole lived experience. And now there are all kinds of places we could go with this. There are all kinds of really good and healthy and important conversations we could have around why we suffer, what kind of suffering there is, and how we can deal with it. And so instead of spending all our time doing all of those things, let's just go down one road. Let's choose one road to go down. And I want to offer the question that I always ask when I'm confronted with this truth that we can't avoid suffering. And that question I always end up asking is, well, if I can't avoid it, if I have to go through it, if I have to enter into it, then how do I suffer well? Yeah, that's the question I want us to end with today. How do we suffer well? Because if this story in part shows that suffering is something we move into and through, not around or over or under, how do we suffer well? What can we hold on to as we enter into those painful, difficult, and hard parts of our existence? Yeah. Maybe that's your question too. How do we suffer well? Whether we're talking about chosen suffering or unchosen suffering, how do we suffer well? And now there, again, are all kinds of things that we could talk about. There are whole bodies of work. There are whole schools of thought. There are whole sets of practices around this whole question of how do we suffer well. But here's one. Here's one that one of my teachers gave to me, and I want to pass it on to you. And this is a question that we must learn to ask every time we enter into suffering, every time we experience that pain and struggle. It's a question that can help us learn to suffer well. And that question is this: how will this shape me? How will this shape me? Because the truth is, suffering will shape us. It's going to leave a mark. And what asking this question does is decide what kind of mark it's going to leave. It puts us in the driver's seats. It puts the power on us. It makes us decide the kind of mark it's going to leave. How will this shape me? Will it shape me into someone who is hard and bitter and resentful? Or will this shape me into someone who is soft, open, and empathetic? Will this make me fall apart? Or will this make me fall open? Will this kill me and be the end of my story? Or will I choose to trust that Sunday is coming and that resurrection happens? Yeah. That's the thing behind this question of how will this shape me? Because it holds on to that truth that we're moving towards throughout Lent, this truth of Easter. That resurrection happens. That the worst thing is not the last thing, that death doesn't have to be the end, that suffering doesn't have to be the end. And by asking this question, how will this shape me? How will this shape us? What kind of mark is this going to leave? It forces us to lean into that truth of resurrection, into that truth of grace and new life that we have in our faith. By choosing to say, no, I'm not going to let it kill me. I'm not going to let this make me stay in Friday, but I am going to move towards Sunday. I am the one who's going to choose the kind of mark this suffering will leave. Yeah, that's the question we can ask in our suffering. And so maybe you're here today and there's some suffering on the horizon. And you're trying to do anything you can to find the exit ramp to pull over and say, nope, I don't want that to happen. But you find it getting closer and closer and closer. Yeah, if that's you, If that's you, may you hear the hard but important truth of this story. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Suffering happens. We cannot avoid it. Or maybe you're here today and you are in the thick of it. Maybe it's unchosen suffering. Maybe it's chosen. But either way, you're in it and you're like, how do I get through this? Well, the question that we have to ask is the same for both of us, for all of us. How will this shape me? How will this shape me? Am I going to happen to it, or is it going to happen to me? Yeah, that's the question we have to ask. That's the question that can help us suffer well. And so I hope you can ask that, as hard as it might be, as difficult as it might be. I hope that's something that can help you navigate the suffering you're in and find out that someday later on, hey, I came out on top. I didn't let it defeat me. I actually got to experience some resurrection. And so as we enter into whatever suffering we're in or whatever suffering is coming up, may you struggle well. May you suffer well. And may you ask that question. How will this shape me? Will I let it kill me? Will I let it be the end of my story? Will I let it make me hard and bitter and resentful? Or will I opt for resurrection and begin to do that hard work of rising up and letting it shape me into someone who is more open, generous, grateful, and empathetic and loving? Because the truth is, the choice is ours. It's up to us. And so, my friends, may you struggle well, may you suffer well, and may grace and peace be with you.
God the All-Holy, Maker and Mother, gladly we gather, bringing in prayer onwards for healing, new hopes we're holding, giving, receiving, loving and care. Spirit unseen, healing and blending, joy and desiring, friendship and ease, make our belonging loyal and lasting, so that our pledging freshens and frees. Christ will completing, nature enfolding, evil exhausting in love's embrace, weaving and mending, make every ending God's new beginning, glowing with grace.
So, my friends, that is everything for this week. Thank you for being here. Seriously, thank you for being here with us. It was so good to spend some time with you today. Before you do go, make sure you go and click on every single one of the links in the description. Seriously, every single one. They'll take you to some really good places. There's one that will take you to our website, and you can find all kinds of good things to get in on and be a part of. One will take you to our donation page, and you can donate to help us keep doing this work of keeping people connected, fostering hope, meaning, and purpose. There's a contact form down there too. We'd love to know who you are. We'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Maybe you've got some questions you want to ask. Maybe you're Bill from Saskatoon and you had this huge life theology question. Let me know. Seriously, maybe that can be a sermon. If you've got a spiritual practice that you know works and will be great for Lent, send it in. Let's do this work together. There's also one that says Zoom, our favorite online platform. Click on that right now because we are all heading over there for some time to keep the conversations going and be in community. And you, the new person, you're welcome there. Seriously, you are welcome there. We'd love to have you in on that. But for now, as we all head As always, my friends, as you go from this place, may you know that you are not alone. May you know that you go with, in, and around God. And may you go in peace. May you go in love. May you go and do it loudly. Amen. Around God? I don't even know what that is. Good night. I don't. Let's stop.